Hi guys, Mindstone here, and today I will be reviewing the new cards revealed in, at the cards in the card set One Night at Karazhan that was just revealed a little bit of time ago. So yeah, first up we've got the Curator, and initially this card looks interesting. So you can look at him as 7 mana for 6 taunt with draw 3 cards, and that's really cool. Um, Not a really cool mechanic at least. Well, there's just a bit of specification upon what these cards are. That can be good and that can be bad, because sometimes you're gonna know exactly what you get. Because if you only have one dragon, you're gonna get that dragon if you haven't drawn it already. Um, yeah, so there's some cool stuff to him, but he might just not. Well, he might draw you one card and then he's kind of bad, or he might even draw you no cards and then he's really bad. Um, so he's got really nice synergy with these dragons and beasts and murlocs that go in every deck. Oh, well, not in every deck, but in most decks, and especially these decks that utilize more. So you could consider, let's say, Reno Lock, which would play Stampeding Kodo, and maybe you could also play Azure Dragon Reno Lock, and then you have a dragon and you have a beast, and then you're really close to actually making this guy work. Now you just need to put in a Murloc. Um, so obviously you don't have to put that in. You could just have a bit of dragons and a bit of beasts, and you're fine. You could play this sort of dragon hunter, and you have beasts and you have dragons, and you're good. You always get something then. Or you could even consider putting the curator into Murloc Paladin. Then you get a Murloc, you get maybe a Stampeding Kodo, and if you're playing Ashdrake, you'll have that as well. So that would be fairly interesting actually. But you can compare him to Twin Emperor Veclor, which is, yeah, well, let's say you get another 4/6 if you have, well, Cthulhu and 10 attack. So yeah, he's interesting. I believe he's going to see play in some funny decks. He's a bit weak if you don't have the correct build up around him, but you do build a deck around this Beast Dragon Murloc thing, so he's not really having any real weaknesses if you build the deck correctly. He might have a little tempo when you play him, but he has taunt, so he's kind of a fast card anyways. I would rate him as probably just above average, because Twin Emperor Vector is like really good, and this card is kind of comparable to that. And it's not worse, but it's not better definitely either. You get less tempo, but you get a lot of cards in your hand, so that can be really good. So I'm gonna say above average. That would be like 7 out of 10, or he could maybe consider it as just solid, and that's 6 out of 10. But yeah, about that. So next card up is Morose. Yeah, well he's 3 mana, 1/1 with stealth, and he summons more 1/1s. Honestly, this card looks pretty bad to me. He's going to die to a lot of random pings that are in the game right now, a lot of board clears. If you're playing this guy, the main thing you've got to consider is which deck are you playing him in. Because you can say, oh well, he looks good, it's infinite value, but where would you ever put this card? Because you couldn't put him in control, because you're not interested in a lot of tokens there. You're not going to put him aggro because he's too slow for that. The only deck you really consider is token decks, and that's like maybe Druid, so token Druid. But then you consider that he's just really little tempo. You can have a 2/5 in Druid for 3 mana, or you could play this guy. So I think it's just not enough tempo, and you don't really get out what you want. It's like this guy's like Imp Master or whatever. It's 3 mana, 1/5 that summons imps in the end of her in your turn. So it's kind of like that, but it's just I'm not impressed with this guy really. He's going to die to way too many pings and such. Obviously he can be super annoying, but I just think he'll be ignored most of the time. So I'm gonna rate him as weak, which is like 2 out of 10. I don't see which deck except for Aggro Druid, Token Druid it's going to, and I just think that it's going to be ignored too much. But it's got some synergy with these buff all cards, but I don't think it's gonna happen. If the tokens have stealth, then we could talk about it, but they don't, so I don't suppose they do at least. It's not written on the card. Well, next card, Bookworm. So 6 mana, 3/6. That's not terrible stats. It's not vanilla value, but with a good effect. We can talk about it. And we're definitely having a good effect. So if we're holding a dragon, this is Stampeding Kodo. That kills something with one more attack. So I think this card is like really good, and it's going to definitely see play in Dragon decks. Because in Dragon decks, you actually don't really have a good 6-drop. You have maybe a Dragon Crusher, but that's all. You don't have anything else. So it's like, I think you might just want to have another dragon, some dragon that really fits into control, because Dragon Crusher is a dragon that fits into aggro, so you have it in Dragon Warrior. But Bookworm is actually going to fit into those control dragon styles, like Priest. And I think this is going to be really cool, because this is a card that kills aggro cards, or mid-range for that matters, and leaves a dragon. And he's a dragon himself, so he triggers dragon synergies. So I just think it's a really overall solid card. There's a lot of dragon synergy in there. He has dragon synergy himself, and he's a dragon himself, so that's really good. And that's the way you want the cards in dragon decks to be. He's a bit bad if there's no small cards on your opponent's side of the board. That's a bit risky. So if you're playing control matchups where you're two control decks, you might not see a use for this guy. But he's still a dragon, so you're still just gonna hold him and make all your other dragons trigger off him. So it's kind of alright. But yeah, in pretty much every control dragon deck, so everything that's not Dragon Control Warrior, yeah. And I would definitely rate this guy as probably an 8 or 7. 7 or 8, so great or above average. About that. Then we've got Prince Malchazar. Yeah. So, first of all, when you look at this card, this is not something that happens when you play him. It's when you have him in your deck when the game starts. So your opponent is going to know right away that Prince Malchazar has been played. There will be 5 more cards. You will win the Fatigue War if you're playing a control match. That will just happen. It's just the way it is. But the legendaries could be garbage. So you're going to consider them as maybe they're like alright or they're dead draws. You will never see this card be played ever in an aggro deck, because you don't want these 5 legendaries in there to cut, well, they're going to cut your speed of the deck, so that's not good. You really want a fast deck in aggro, so you're not going to see legendaries there. This guy is Pit Fighter plus the effect, and he's a demon, but we don't really care about that all too much. Unless you're playing Warlock, and then you don't even care about it anyways. So, in control matchups, I could see it in Control Warrior and some stall deck. If there's really a lot of control, you just play this guy, and you're going to win, well, that way. Or in a Fatigue deck, I could see it as well, just to have more cards. But it's not even that powerful in there. And the main reason is that you don't want legendaries in Fatigue decks. And if you're playing control matchups, it could be really good with another 5 legendaries. But it's still questionable. But yeah. It has to be noted that these legendaries you get cannot be legendaries that you have in your deck already. So you're going to have legendaries that are actually quite likely that you're not going to want to put in your deck. Or you're going to have stuff like Growl and yeah, so that kind of stuff. But I think it's not terrible, definitely. You might see this in some control decks, but mostly you're not going to see this because it's not that amazing. But I'm probably going to say it's maybe situational or average. It's around that, because it's like a Pit Fighter, so it's not horrible. It's just not something you would want to put in your deck usually. Yeah. So, looking at the next card, Pompous Tespian. How to pronounce that correctly. Well, this is pretty much an ordinary card, but the weird thing about it is that we haven't seen this sort of combination of stats previously. What we've seen is a 2/2 taunt for 2, which is the Frostwolf God, which is a basic card. But now, that card's a bad card. Pompous Tespian just has another attack, so I don't know if that will make him a good card. Initially, I'd say no. He's going to me, fit into the same role as Flame Juggler, which is honestly just a card you put in there in your deck, in some aggro midrange deck, if you don't have anything else. And you're like, yeah, well, let's get a solid card. And I think Pompous Tespian is just worse. because he trades evenly with Flame Juggler, and the Flame Juggler might even ping off something else or do damage to the face. So I'm just really not that fond of Pompeius Thespian. Um, yeah, there's just he has 2 HP. That's simply too little. He'll die to most things, and the 3 attacks not really helping him all that much with Taunt. With Taunt, you want to survive, I believe. It's a defensive card, but this card is actually having aggressive stats. So I just don't really see where it would fit in. It's like maybe Sue, but Sue doesn't have space for it, and now that Sue got some really cool new cards. We're gonna get to these later, I guess, in the Warlock cards when I'll make that video. I just don't think there's space for Pompeius Thespian. Yeah, so I don't think this card is good. I don't think you're gonna see it really anywhere. But I'm gonna rate it as just situational because it's not a bad card. It's just it doesn't fit into anything. Well, maybe you could say it's a below average thing because you can't use it in anything. But it's like the stat line's not bad. Really, it's just not. But it doesn't fit into anything still. Well, next card up is Nether Spite Historian, which is dragons, and lots of them. You're gonna consider this card as it's a museum curator of dragons. And I don't know if you want that, because that's kind of not that amazing. So in Priest, you're gonna have Wormrest Agent that you want to play over this guy. He's still okay, he's a 1/3, so you're gonna be losing 1 stat off the vanilla value for Dragon Discover. Because you're gonna have a dragon, mostly. So that's pretty cool. I could see him being played just to play something to get you more dragons. So in a dragon deck where you might not want all of the dragons, you're gonna put this guy in, and then you have just the dragons you really want, and this guy, and the other dragon trigger card. So maybe a control dragon warrior. That could happen actually. Now because War Ages had these aggro cards that were really good with some dragons. Then you put the dragons into aggro warrior. Now this guy could actually make it so that you don't have to put in, let's say, Dragonite Crusher, and Alexstrasza's Champion, and then you might actually have a control Dragon Warrior arising. So that's a possibility with this guy. And I think that could be interesting, but I don't know if it's going to be really good. It just seems like you're not getting enough tempo out of playing the Nether Spite Historian. Also, you're not getting a dragon, and well, you are if you have a dragon, but if you're not having a dragon, you're not going to have a dragon. So it doesn't change if your dragon and triggers are being triggered or not. It just gives you another dragon, which is not that amazing. So I'd probably say it's average, or even solid, because it's kind of an okay card, but I don't know, it's not like an insane anyway. If it had just one more stat point, I would have probably said it's really good, but I'm just gonna rate it as average or solid, so 5 or 6. Yeah, that's just it's a control card definitely, or mid range could even be. But next card up is Arcane Giant. Yeah, well, Tempo Mage, here we go. And Greed Druid. So these spell heavy decks are just gonna be like clapping their hands and being like, yeah, we're gonna take an 8/8 for 0 mana. Yes, please. Control Shaman's gonna love this as well. There's really a lot of spell decks that are just gonna be like, yeah. I think Greedy Tempo Mage is going to definitely play this. Just because that if it's just you get to play this guy for 0 if you get far enough into the game, and you play Cabalist Tomb, then you play the spell and you play 3 more spells, so you play a lot of spells in that like really greedy mage. So I think this card is just pretty much insane. Yeah, well, it's just really really good. Obviously it's just in the decks that can utilize it, but if a deck can utilize it, this guy is really superbly good. I don't know if that's even a word. It's just really a crazy card, and I believe it's going to see play in if not a lot of decks. Yeah, so I'm gonna rate it as probably 8 or 9, so great or insane. because it's just a card that's going to be super important for the spell decks now, I believe. Um, yeah, and I will. Um, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Tempo Mage will be after this card has been released, because I think it's gonna matter. Um, well, next card up is Arcane Anomaly. So this guy is like Mana Worm, and he's neutral, so that's pretty cool. Obviously, he's neutral. I'm just reviewing the neutrals right now. Um, but he's like Mana Worm, but he just gains more health. And I think that's really interesting, but I think he might fit as a tempo mage. That's quite likely he'll be in there, but that's going to be like really aggressive tempo mages, not the greedy ones. Um, but I think he might actually see even more play in greedy druid, because then you could really use him as a token that will just grow and be really scary. Um, yeah, so mainly greedy druid, I believe, but it's actually a really good card because he's just kind of solid. But the thing is, just tempo mage kind of have something that's even better, which is the mana worm. At least I'd consider the mana worm better, because this guy's kind of vulnerable with 1 health. So if he's not having more health quickly, then he might just get exposed really quickly. And obviously, Blizzard couldn't give him 3-1 stats or something, because then he would just be broken. But I think he's pretty good. I'm probably just gonna say that he's great, so 8. We're definitely gonna see him in those spell decks, Tempo Mage and Greedy Druid. Don't think we're gonna see him in anything else, really, not that I remember, because he's quite aggressive and he requires a lot of spells to be really doing something. So I think only these aggressive spell decks are going to play him. Next card is Runic Egg. This card I've been wondering a lot. Looked really interesting and really cool because it's 1 mana and draw a card, which is never seen before in Hearthstone. So will this card be important for the meta, and will it even mean something? And I can't tell. I simply can't tell. It's a card that I really think could be so cool and so good, but I can't tell if it's good actually. Uh, yeah, I just can't. I don't know which deck it would be put into, because how are you gonna make it die in a control deck? I could believe it could be played in something like, let's say, Reno Lock or Worgen Warrior, or maybe even Freeze Mage, where you have a lot of these board clears that will hit in both boards. You don't really have one Reno Lock, but you have 2 board clears. But if you put a lot of board clears and that hit your own board, you might actually see this card be pretty interesting. I don't know about Rook. Maybe Death Rattle Rook will be something where you do the, let's say, you can do Rapture on this, and you can do Cold Blood on this, and you might actually have some funny stuff happening. I could imagine actually in Greedy Druid as well, because it's a token that you play on turn 1, and you can actually draw a card off it, which is something Greedy Druid really wants. They have Nourish, but they want even more if they can. With the more spells they have, the more powerful their Thorazon goes, and really, they're just more powerful that way. So I think Greedy Druid might utilize this. That's actually probably the deck that's most likely to utilize it. Yeah, maybe some control decks, but I don't really expect it. I think we're just going to see this in Greedy Druid, if we're going to see it. I don't know. It's just going to be a solid card, I believe, but it's just, I have never seen a card like this before. It's never been in Hearthstone, so I don't know exactly how it's going to be. But I believe it's just going to be a solid card. Maybe not, but maybe we're not going to see it, and it's just going to be garbage. But that depends very much if these decks that can utilize it will pick it up and say it's worth a spot. But, well, now that Greedy Druid got so many good cards, I don't know if they will, but I'd say it's either solid or garbage, depending on if it's played or not. Next card up is Moat Lurker, which is battle card destroy minion, death rattle, resummon it. So this card is pretty funny. I don't think actually I understood what this card did before I just spoke it out just before. Because what it actually does is it says destroy a minion. It doesn't tell us if it's one of our minions or one of the opponent's minions. But when it dies, you resummon it. I don't know if you resummon it on the opponent's board if you killed one of their minions, or on your own board. So I could imagine that it resummons it to your own board. But that's almost too good. Then it's like an auto-include in pretty much every deck, except for really aggro decks. Um, but in every control deck, every mid-range deck, this is going to be auto-include if it's that way. But I don't expect it to be. I just expect it to be destroy minion. When this guy dies, he resummons it to the board where it was. So pretty much like this guy is a reincarnation where you split the destroy and resummon parts. So it's kind of funny with Priest getting the card Purify, so they could actually silence him off and draw a card. So maybe you could kill an opponent's minion and then silence Sky, so it wouldn't be summoned back. That's an interesting perspective, I'd say, but really I don't know. It could be insanely broken and be an auto-include, which is what is equivalent in my scale to 10 on the rating, but it could just be like midi-core and just average, maybe even situational, if it's just a resurrection thing. Where so it goes back to the board where it was destroyed. But we'll see. The stat line's pretty bad, but it's all about the effect. So now we've got Violet Illusionist. This card is only relevant in, I think, 2 scenarios. The one scenario is if you're a weapon class that uses the weapons to kill large minions. So if you're Hunter, if you're Warrior, if you're Shaman, I think these 3 classes are the classes which are interesting to look at. Because Rogue doesn't really kill anything really large with their weapons most of the time. And the last weapon class, Paladin, they have enough healing. They don't really need to be immune. But what's really interesting is the synergy with Doomhammer and with the new Warrior Axe, which I think might become pretty important. Because it means that when you attack, you actually don't take damage. So this guy could maybe restore, let's say, up to 15 health if you play him on the correct turn. And that's a pretty bonkers effect if you just make it work. There's still the other scenario, which I haven't told you guys about yet, but that's when you're trolling and you just want to see how far fatigue can go. Because if both players have one of these, you can't die. So that's like, if you're really just having fun, you're gonna do this. Actually, this could, I don't know, but this card, it's interesting because it has this really funny effect where it might be if you're just having fun, or it might actually be a really good card. It is quite likely to be a really good card with a nice stat line. It's got pretty good stats for the cost, which is actually going to reduce a lot of damage done to you. So I'm not really looking at it in mid-range decks, in aggro decks, because I think it might just be too slow, and you might not really care about your own health way too much. But in mid-range decks, I think it could be very interesting, and maybe even a single one control decks. I would consider that some Warlock decks might even use it if inflict enough damage to themselves, and maybe it has a place in Sue, but I don't really think so, because Sue usually doesn't care all that much about his own health. So I think we're mainly just going to see it in the Shaman Warrior, in the mid-range version of these. So I'm going to say it's probably an above average card, because it's quite good if you make it work, but it might just be average if you don't make it work all that much. It's like, I'm looking at the scenarios where it can be really amazing, or if it's not really amazing, then it's just average. You get pretty fine stats, so it can't really be all that bad. Next card up is Barnes. So this guy is pretty weird, because he's like, the stat line's bad for a 4 mana, but you summon a 1/1 and then he's fine. So, but the 1/1 effect is interesting. So either, well, you know the 1/1 will have the effect of the random minion. So you can get, as the example Blizzard made, Antonidas, or Shrine Fondring, or whatever. Something really cool. But I don't think you can silence it back up to the original stat. It usually doesn't work out that way. With Shadowcaster minions, it hasn't been so you can silence it. You actually get a copy, which the original stats of the copy are 1/1. But Nasoth decks are quite interesting with this guy because if you pull out, let's say, a Sylvanas or a Giant Fondring from Nasoth Paladin, you can actually revive these twice with Nasoth, and that might just go really crazy. Um, so yeah, I think Barnes might have a future in Nasoth decks, but I don't know where else you would play him. Tempo Mage might play this guy, but it's not likely. It's just you have a few cards that if you pull them out and do a lot of spells, you're gonna have a lot of funny stuff happening, like Antonidas. But really, a lot of mages have stopped playing Antonidas, and he might not see that much play then. But it could be interesting enough just going Barnes Arcane Missiles, and if you then pull out Antonidas or Flame Waker or something, you would just have some pretty good plays actually. Or just if you're playing Ragnaros and Tempo Mage, which a lot of Tempo Mages do, it might be interesting as well. But we'll see. I don't know. He's very unreliable, and I wouldn't rate him that high. I'd probably say he's a solid or above average card, depending on how well his effect works out. Um, but he definitely is something that you can't build a deck around him because he's not powerful enough for that, and he's too unreliable for it. But he will fit into certain decks and be really good in these decks, or just average in some other decks. Then next card up is Avian Watcher, which just seems to be a 4/7 with Taunt if you control Secret. For 5 mana. These stats are good, but they're very situational and not very groundbreaking in any way. So, being a bit quick here, I'm gonna say it's not extraordinary, and yeah, it's probably not gonna go in any decks at all. Yeah, just looking at it, I don't see any deck which could use it. Tempo Mage doesn't care about a big taunt. Hunter does not want this, which is in their eyes garbage. Um, and Paladin, I don't think so. You're not playing secrets and defensive stuff together. That's just not good with Paladin. Um, so, and Freeze Mage is definitely not going to play this either. Even though it's a big taunt, they just use bulk clear, not taunt. And taunt 5 is really important to them because they want to do the Doomsday combo there. So this is not going to be played. It's weak. Maybe even garbage because it doesn't fit into anything, even though the stat line is kind of alright. Next card up is Arcanosmith, which is actually a pretty interesting card because he's very much just putting up a large barrier, but the barrier will just die without doing anything really, because it doesn't have any attack. So the question is, if you're looking to reduce damage, he might be alright, but everything else is just kind of bad. Um, I could consider the combo with Arcanosmith Inner Fire, which is kind of interesting, but everything else is just nah, don't really want it. So I'm probably just gonna say he's weak. So two on the rating out of 10. And I think it's just, yeah, we're not going to see this card a lot. Probably not at all. Don't think it's like inner fire decks are not wanting to do this. Yeah, yeah, it's just it's not a good card. Next card is Menagerie Magician. So really important to know about this card is it is give a random friendly beast dragon and Murloc +2/+2. So you're giving one of each +2/+2. So this means you're actually playing stats for 10/10 for 5 if you have one of each. This is absolutely crazy. Even if you just play an 8/8 for 5, that's really insane. And of the four of the stat, well, half the stats are gonna have charge if you have two of them. If you have one, let's say you have just one, you're gonna get 6/6 for 5. Um, it's not amazing, but still those stats have charge. So you're gonna look at this guy as a Houndmaster, which has one more health for one more mana and doesn't give taunt, but has amazing potential if you're playing some weird hybrid deck. So I'm gonna say this card is actually, well, he's auto include in any deck that would play all three classes, and actually try to play the strategy with the Curator and Azure Magician, but he's probably just above average or maybe even great in a deck that's like playing two of them. And I think he's just solid if you're playing one of them. Especially the beasts are pretty interesting. And the dragons are quite interesting as well. Actually, dragon and priest might like this guy a lot because you can do Twilight Whelp with him, and you're gonna buff that a lot. So I think this guy is gonna see play in troll decks and maybe even as an attempt to make him a good card in the dragon deck. But I don't know about it. We'll see. But I'm gonna say he's above average. So 7 out of 10. Now we've got Pantry Spider. This guy, quickly said, this guy is garbage. You're gonna get 2/6 for 3. Yes, that is not, well, it's more than you have ever had of stats for 3 mana before. Not considering there would be some bad effect. But it's split up in 2 times 1/3, and 1/3 is garbage. Like, unless that's on a 1-drop, then it's garbage. So the enemy 2-drop can kill all of this. If it's a 3/2, which is likely. And a 3/3 will just kill it without any problems. So, yeah. Yeah, it's just, it simply has too little attack. If it was 3/1, then it could be considered. If it was 2/2, it could be considered, but 1/3 is just garbage. We're not going to see this in anything. So it's a 1 out of 10. I'm almost going to call this 0 out of 10, which is, in my opinion, the Blizzard jokes. So Amgam Rager, but I'm going to say 1 out of 10 because it's not a joke. This is not a joke. They actually thought this was cool, but it's garbage. So don't ever play this guy. Next card up is Subot, which is Menagerie Magician in a cheaper version. So this guy is probably not all as powerful. He's still alright, and he's really insane if you get the effect off on all 3 of them. But if you just get the effect off on one of them, he's just a 4 for 3 mana. And that's not even that insane. The good thing about Menagerie Magician is that you get so much tempo out of him if you play him where you have something. So the stats are instantly being put on the minions. So that's pretty good. But Subot just seems like it's not all that much tempo you get out of him. He's still pretty good, but I don't think you're going to necessarily see him in decks that do not play multiple types of things. He's a mech himself, it has to be noted, so we're going all the way here. It's not just beasts, dragons, and murlocs, they're mechs as well. So, yeah, well, it's pretty bonkers with all those types, but it's cool, and he's probably just going to be seen in that triple type deck. I don't know. But I'm going to rate him as just, yeah, average or situational. So 4 or 5. Then next card up is Medivh himself. This guy is insane. You get 7/7 for 8. Jeff, it's fair enough, but it's not good. You want something good to accompany him, and you do get that. Because the main part of this card is not him, it's what you get. And this is what you get. A Tish, which reads, after you cast a spell, summon a random minion of that cost, lose 1 durability. You have 3 of these charges. That's absolutely insane. If you consider you play him on turn 8, or even better, as Renal, you play him on turn 7 with Coin, then you have fun with him, and that's all good on the next turn, but then you do Twisting Nether. And then Atish says, after you cast a spell, summon a random minion of that cost, lose 1 durability. That means you get an 8-drop, and you've just cleared the board. That is insanely much tempo. So you're definitely going to see this guy in Retinol because of all those hard board clears that you can really utilize. You're probably going to see him in Tempo Mage as well, because the spells, yeah, it's just, if you do Fireball, you get a Yeti. You might just get a Yeti, or something else, which is like kind of like it. And you've got 3 of these charges still, so unless there's a lot of weapon removal, Atish is just going to be insane. And you're not even considering, in this way, that you have to deal with a 7/7 body of Medivh himself as well. So if Big Game Hunter was still a thing, Medivh would have been a lot worse, but Big Game Hunter's not a thing, so Medivh is pretty good. and Atish is just making him insane. So we're gonna see Medivh played. That's at least fairly likely. I would probably just say he's insane. He's 9, I mean out of 10. But he's not gonna go in aggro decks. But he's gonna go in pretty much every mid range and control deck which play spells and don't have weapons constantly. So you can say Control Warrior might not play this guy. Um, because they have Go Howl, but it's like everything else will. At least I hope so. Because it's a really cool effect. We've got some RNG going on, and that's just kind of funny. So yeah, I like that card. I think it's super cool. And I'm really gonna hope that he sees play, and I think he will. It's almost impossible he won't. But that was probably it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and you might have some ideas for some new decks, and I will see you in my next video.